For many Americans who haven't lost jobs or don't own businesses, the central feature of the CARES Act, passed in March to offset the economic effects of the coronavirus pandemic, was the $1,200 per person payments it authorized. Since the economic crisis has not gotten visibly better and the reopening of businesses is at most partial and perilous, there's been talk, particularly among Democrats, of a second round of stimulus payments. Though some still haven't received their first check, there is understandably considerable interest in whether the federal government might provide more relief to individuals. Here's the situation as it stands just before Congress takes a long Memorial Day break. What happened with the first round of stimulus checks? As my colleagues Eric Levitz and Adam K. Raymond recently explained, the IRS, which Congress put in charge of the payments, was instructed to make approximately 150 million payments. The amounts varied depending on income and number of children in the household. Those earning up to $75,000, or $150,000 for married couples, got the full check. Partial payments were available to individuals earning up to $99,000 or couples earning $198,000. Parents received an additional $500 for each dependent child. People who had already given the IRS direct deposit bank information received the first payments. Instead of a paper check, they got a direct deposit. It has been tougher for others, which is why some eligible people are still waiting on paper checks in the mail. The IRS says they should arrive by late May or early June. As of mid-May, roughly 20 million eligible Americans were still waiting on their stimulus checks. If you are among them, hang tight and watch the mail. What are Democrats proposing for a second round of payments? House Democrats proposed a similar second round of stimulus checks in the so-called HEROES Act they passed on May 13. The income thresholds and individual check amounts, $1,200, were the same, but the payment for dependent children was boosted from $500 to $1,200, up to a limit of 3. So a two-parent family with 3 kids and income under $150,000 could receive total payments of $6,000, $2,400 for the parents, $3,600 for the dependent children. The bill doesn't change the way the money is distributed, so it would be a good idea to go ahead and send the IRS banking information for a quick payment, at least when it becomes clear that a second check has been authorized. How did Republicans react? Senate Republicans, who don't want to give the impression that they have to negotiate over House Democratic proposals, have largely dismissed the HEROES Act as a liberal wish list or as a political messaging bill not seriously intended to go anywhere. But their criticisms have mostly focused on the overall price tag, $3 trillion, provisions for aid to state and local governments, and an extension of the $600 federal unemployment insurance add-on until the end of the year. More generally, many congressional Republicans and conservative opinion leaders argue for a pause in stimulus efforts until the $2.2 trillion authorized by the CARES Act is fully distributed and states are given the opportunity to reopen businesses. They also are very focused on providing corporations with a liability shield against coronavirus-related lawsuits and damage claims. In line with the president's shift toward demanding reopening, his supporters in and beyond Congress are beginning to think the easing of restrictions on businesses rather than federal stimulus is the key to economic recovery. Still, of all the Democratic proposals, payments to individuals seem to arouse a relatively lower negative reaction, certainly if compared to massive state and local government assistance or subsidized unemployment benefits. Republicans do seem resigned to having to pass another round of stimulus legislation, but are hoping for better economic news before determining its size and structure. Where's Trump on new stimulus efforts? Trump and his staff have been relatively quiet on this issue, but signs have begun emerging that he is open to another round of stimulus, and favors more individual payments, according to CNBC. The president on Thursday said, "I think we're going to be helping people out and getting some money for them as tens of millions of Americans lose paychecks and businesses struggle to survive with public health restrictions still in place in much of the country." He added that the U.S. could take one more nice shot at stimulus. Trump's advisors have echoed his sentiment. On Friday morning, economic advisor Kevin Hassett told CNN that another round of aid is pretty likely, saying he believes it's coming sooner rather than later. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin said Thursday that he sees a strong likelihood the U.S. will need more stimulus. That's all more positive than the noises coming from congressional Republicans. When will negotiations take place? Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell has made it clear that he wants to develop a GOP position on additional stimulus efforts with the White House before any negotiations with Democrats take place, but obviously at some level a back and forth will develop once Republicans become satisfied they've trashed the HEROES Act enough. Best as we can tell, intra-GOP talks will begin happening in early June, after the Memorial Day debate. Whether they move quickly or slowly will likely depend on economic news as it happens, and whether it's bad enough to convince the White House and congressional Republicans that they cannot count on business reopenings boosting the economy, or the president's prospects for re-election, anytime soon. The other variable is whether Republicans and Democrats generally stay focused on areas of agreement, potentially the second round of stimulus checks, or disagreement, again, Democratic demands for large-scale aid to state and local governments, Republican demands for corporate protections, and the red-hot dispute over the continuation and amount of subsidized unemployment benefits due to expire on July 31st. What's the likely outcome? Disagreements between the two parties over the size and shape of coronavirus stimulus legislation are sharp enough to slow down negotiations, once they begin. If you are counting on a second check, keep an eye on economic news. If unemployment rates don't begin to come down and general economic activity remains stagnant, pressure for new stimulus, particularly the individual payments that most people in both parties support, will rapidly mount. But so, too, will partisan tensions over the unemployment benefits issue. Look for a deal on that subject as probably the best sign that help is on the way.